Good evening, my delightful things. Welcome to the Cavern of Secrets. I'm Kasara, or Cassie, and we're discussing arson this month. I've long wondered the motives and the crimes that have been committed over the years related to this topic. I was reminded of this thanks to criminal drama shows, and I was curious how much they got right in terms of this. Because most TV shows involving criminal offenders and things like that, they get wrong. They either over dramatize things or exaggerate the offenders, kind of make them these perfect criminals, and I hate it. It bothers me. But let's see if we can answer some of the questions regarding this topic. There are 6 different types of arsonists in terms of motive. There's the arsonists who start fires for profit. They might be struggling with funds and decide to attempt insurance fraud. That's your typical. There are actually 3 types of property insurance fraud: residential, commercial, and vehicular. Residential fraud is typically committed by the homeowner or tenant, which basically is self-explanatory, but commercial fraud is typically committed by the owner to destroy company statements or claims on insurance. Vehicular fraud might occur when someone can't afford their repayments, I should say. For-profit arsonists tend to be one-off crimes and are very focused, which makes it easier to find the offender than other types of arson because there's a direct link to the damaged property or its owner. So they're easier to find. And a lot of times they can actually tell if the arson was not accidental, which also helps with the case. The second type is pyromaniacs, which start fires for the thrill and attention. Their fires can range from bins to occupied buildings. The size and risk associated with the fires might increase over time as the arsonist needs more excitement with each event, kind of like serial killers. The offenders are often voyeuristic, which means they like having a front row seat when the emergency services arrive to handle the devastation. And sometimes they'll even call the emergency services themselves and then just stand around waiting for them to show up. Pyromaniacs might also video or photograph the fire along with the first responders, I should say. Some of these types of arsonists have been first responders themselves. They start the fires in order to be a hero in attendance, seeking praise and recognition for their bravery. Crime concealment is another type of arson. For these types of offenders, the arson is secondary to the concealment of another crime, which might be theft or murder. Moving on to revenge arsonists, they are emotionally driven. They set fires out of anger, hatred, or revenge, which might be real or perceived wrong. So it may actually not be a real reason for revenge. They might actually believe that somebody wronged them and start a fire in response. The need to retaliate might be based on a personal slight, such as being fired from a job or an affair. Targets vary from individuals to institutions. Since these crimes are based on the emotional state of the offender, the crimes are usually disorganized and unsophisticated in terms of the methods used to start the fires, which makes it easier to find the offender since they leave more evidence behind. Extremist motivations is the 5th type. These offenders are typically driven by political, social, or religious agendas. There are actually 2 types within the extremist arsonist. The first being those who react to a civil disturbance, such as the death of someone in custody. Activities might include vandalism and looting to draw attention to the perceived justice. The second type are terrorist arsonists, also known as pyroterrorism. These offenders use incendiary attacks to intimidate or coerce government or civilian populations. The offenders might use arson as one of a range of measures and may work alone or within cells. And they're hoping that it'll cause fear, not just from the target itself. Their crimes are also premeditated, with targets carefully selected to those that will have the most social, economic, or political impact. These offenders are often highly organized as well, since they also might use advanced devices to create mass fear beyond the actual target itself, like I said. The final type of arson is vandalism. Vandal arsonists tend to be juveniles who set fires to bins, abandoned vehicles, or empty buildings. They might also commit arson to cover up their other crimes, such as theft. Another factor to vandal arsonists is starting the fire due to peer pressure or gang initiation, since these arsonists often act in groups, not solo. These offenders can be what criminologists call a gateway crime, since it's one that may lead to more severe criminal activity if it's not handled early on. If such offenders are given suitable support, rehabilitation can be highly successful in preventing the offender from becoming a serious repeat offender. These might be the main motivations for arson, but that doesn't mean there aren't outliers. There's outliers for everything. Arson is a highly complex crime with a wider range of social, psychological, and environmental influences, so more work is required to understand the offender, their motivations, along with how they can be identified, caught, convicted, and hopefully, in the end, rehabilitated. Next Friday, we'll look at true crime cases that occurred recently in terms of arson. However, I'm focusing on individuals and pairs, not groups. Let me know what your thoughts are on this, and if you think there are other reasons someone might commit an arson. Do you think the TV crime dramas do an accurate representation of these types of offenses? As always, I'll leave a link in the description for those of you interested in finding out more about this. I think they do a decent job for TV, but it is TV. I think they over-dramatize or make the offenders more than they are, kind of like what they put serial killers in film. They're always highly intelligent, calculating, and even evade capture easily. It's not accurate in the least. Not that they are stupid, because serial killers weren't in terms of evading capture and choosing their victims. However, they always made mistakes and were found eventually. And today's time, it's actually harder for them to get go undetected, since we have better forensics. So it wouldn't be easy for them to keep their DNA from the crime scene. They're bound to leave evidence of some sort behind. But let me know all your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a great weekend. Take care until next time. Bye, everybody.